Hi guys, and welcome back to the Moaning Yorkshireman, and welcome to part numero 2, part 2 of the question and answers time. I'll be answering all your lovely questions. If you've not seen part 1, then I recommend you go pop yourself up there or there, wherever it goes. I'll leave the link up there for you to watch that one first before you continue into this one. Or alternatively, if your questions weren't answered in the part 1, you know they're going to be answered here. So yes, here we go. We're going to kick things off with part 2. And there's going to be a seamless change right now. And I swear, it's utterly seamless. You won't even notice the difference. Where I'd recorded a little bit more of the first part, but then quickly realised it went over an hour during editing. So I've included some questions in part 2 that were recorded back last weekend when it was bloody sunny, boiling, hot, ferocious. I was sweating my tits off and getting fed up with life. And what makes it even more seamless is the fact that I've started answering one person's first question, and then I'm going to be answering that same person's second question right now. So you're going to go into the past briefly and then into the future somewhat. But yeah, without further ado, let's kick off with part 2, which is the end of part 1 that I didn't include in that video. And then you're going to cut back to me in a little bit later and be back to future Josh, which will still be past Josh because I've still recorded this on Monday and the video will be going out on Tuesday. Great, glad that's all sorted, but there's going to be a seamless change anyway. I don't even know why I bother mentioning it, to be honest, because you won't know. You won't know, honest, I swear. I swear. Next up, we come to Dayne. Dayne, a great guy, always regularly commenting on the videos. Of every, we've given one, and he's asked 3 questions. And the first one is, do you agree when it comes to Prime in F1, Vettel and Raikkonen were better than Hamilton and Alonso? Now, Vettel definitely not, no, because Hamilton beat him in 2017 and 2018. And the reason why Hamilton beat him, especially in 2018, was because Vettel started spinning after Hockenheim and he couldn't stop himself. So, yeah, you know, maybe the championship in 2018 would have fallen Mercedes' way, but Vettel really didn't help himself, did he? 2017, we saw him lose his head with the Singapore incident where he squeezed Verstappen and Raikkonen and crashed into himself at that point as well. So, yeah, Prime Hamilton was definitely better than Prime Vettel. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is, I'm afraid to say. Raikkonen, Prime Raikkonen would be the mid-2000s, wouldn't it, where he really found his feet. So 05, 06 was a little bit of a bad season for him. 07, of course, he won the title. 08, though, he could have won 08, but he dropped it a couple of times and really cost himself the title that way. Raikkonen better than Prime Alonso. See, the trouble is, you're going against them when they're all roughly racing around the same time, and you've got to think, well, Raikkonen beat Hamilton in 07, but Hamilton was a rookie that year. Hamilton then technically beat him in 08 because Raikkonen was nowhere near for the championship that year towards the latter stages anyway. So that one's a difficult one. But then Prime Hamilton came later. Prime Hamilton was after he'd gone through the turmoil of the 2009 to 2011 season where he was making mistakes at McLaren, wasn't it? Then he switched himself on at Mercedes. So it's very hard to judge, but Alonso did beat Raikkonen in 05 and 06. 05, Raikkonen had a chance. 06, he didn't really. That's difficult. I would definitely say that Hamilton was better than Vettel as Prime. Raikkonen, I don't know. I can't, because they all had the primes at the different times, and it's just difficult to judge between cars and machinery. I mean, I would say Alonso's potentially in his prime now with what he's doing with an Aston Martin. I don't know, too difficult to answer, but I would definitely say Hamilton was better than Vettel overall. That would be the only thing I could decipher from that. Who are your top 5 best drivers in F1 in the 2000s onwards? Top 5 from 2000s onwards. Yeah, this is just so difficult. Something I never really think about, to be honest, because I always think in your own right, your own legend kind of thing. Yeah, 2000s. So that'll be 2000s, so that's 2000 to 2009, isn't it? onwards, though, start taking into the 2010s. Well, Hamilton's definitely got to be in there. Vettel's definitely got to be in there. Raikkonen's definitely got to be in there. Alonso's definitely got to be in there. It's just who's the case of the fifth one. I mean, you'd probably have to go Rosberg, because he won a title in there, didn't he? Michael Schumacher, of course. He's in the 2000s, isn't he? Yeah, it's Michael Schumacher. So I would say Michael Schumacher first. Then I would go Hamilton second, I would say. Alonso third. Raikkonen fourth, Vettel fifth is the way I would do it. Maybe Vettel fourth, Raikkonen fifth. Just because the end of their careers really tailed off, to be honest with you, with Vettel. But Vettel picked it up a bit, didn't he, at the end at Aston Martin that last year. So yeah, we'll go Vettel fourth, Raikkonen fifth. Is how I would do it. Raikkonen had terrible seasons with Alfa Romeo. Sometimes the car wasn't capable, but sometimes he made silly errors as well. There's no denying that. Vettel, of course, bottled the 2018 championship, I would say. 2019 was a disaster. 2020 was an even bigger disaster. I know the car was shite, but got shown up by Leclerc 2 years running. Yeah, Hamilton, he had the difficult season last year, but not too bad. Michael Schumacher never really had a bad year, only when he came back, but can we really hold that against him? And then Alonso has just been a steady plodder and just made bad career choices when it comes to cars. The third and final question from Dayne says, do you think Haas should have had Pietro Fittipaldi as Mick Schumacher's teammate in 2021 rather than Nikita Mazepin? I think anyone, to be honest with you, Dayne, was a better option than having Nikita Mazepin in that car. At the end of the day, though, the 2021 car was just the 2020 car in Soviet Russian colours. Yeah, I don't think it really mattered who was in it. They were always going to be at the back, under-delivering and doing terrible. So the fact that Nikita Mazepin only got 1 year in Formula 1 and he was at the back of the grid is kind of some justice to that, to be honest with you. You do have to make out, you have to commend them really for that, don't you? You have to think, thank God, at least Mazepin only had that 1 year and he was shitting at the back. To be honest, I don't know who else you could have had in it. I think Mazepin didn't deserve to be there, absolutely not, no way at all. Pietro Fittipaldi would have probably been a better bet, but as it was, life's life, Haas had to take the money, and that's that. Then we come to Leewat, who asks 3 questions, and his first one is, what are your thoughts on F1 23? I'd imagine that's the game, not the actual championship. The championship itself, Formula 1 23 this year, has been absolutely diabolical. It's a miracle we've had 10 different podium finishes, that's half the field, but unfortunately they're always just finishing third, because first just Max, isn't it? So yeah, poor season overall. As for the game itself, I've not bought it, I won't be buying it, and I don't care. His second question is, F1 2011 was a disappointing game, worse than 2010. Do you think 2012 and 2013's gameplay were improved from 2010? Now, F1 2011 was a massive disappointment. F1 2010 wasn't. It says worse than 2010. Now, I thought 2010 was a fantastic game itself. Do you think 2012 and 2013 gameplay were improved from 2010? 2012 got back on track, I would say that. 2012 got back on track. It was a fantastic game. Still play it to this day. Really enjoy it. 2013, I enjoy the classic cars and I love the classic tracks as well. Jerez, Estoril, Imola. There was another one as well, weren't there? And that I can't remember off the top of my head. But there was 4 good circuits. Brands Hatch, of course, how could I forget Brands Hatch? They were phenomenal. That was phenomenal. But the gameplay itself wasn't as good as 2012. It went more arcadey. The colours were always really bright on the current grid and too shiny, and that was turning the brightness down. I adjusted that the best I could, and it was still just a little bit too arcadey for me, whereas 2012 had the perfect balance. I did love, though, in the classic mode where it was like a slight haze of brown and you had the old scoreboards and things. That was lovely. I enjoyed that. The gameplay itself was let down by the graphics somewhat, I would say, and the tyre life, where you couldn't save your tyres. They just fell off the cliff dramatically, didn't they? One lap you were fine, the next lap you were sliding everywhere. That was just how it was for Pirelli in 2013. So I think they captured it quite well, but it was difficult. So 2012 would be up there, but I still don't think anything beats 2010. Who did worse in F1, Latifi or Palmer? It's got to be Palmer, hasn't it? It's got to be Palmer. I mean, at least Latifi scored points in cars that didn't necessarily deserve points, whereas Jolyon Palmer failed to score points in a car that was a regular point scorer in the hands of Nico Hülkenberg. 2016, forget 2016, that car was shite. But 2017, Hülkenberg were always finishing 7th, qualifying inside Q3. Jolyon Palmer was just constantly knocked out of Q1s, constantly at the back. Imagine having him in, I don't know, an Aston Martin alongside Fernando Alonso this season, for example. I don't think he'd be doing any better or any worse than Lance Stroll at the minute. So yeah, definitely I would say Palmer worse because of just the overall pace of not scoring points in a car that should have done. Latifi, 2022, you could argue he should have had more points, but at the same time, at least he did score some, So he was still useless, but he was ever so slightly better just than Jolyon Palmer. Then we come to Matthew Briggs, and he says, "Nice to see you do another Q&A video. What is your favourite and least favourite team principal of all time?" So my favourite team principal of all time, I think I'm going to have to go back to Eddie Jordan, what I said I would choose him for my overall best team. Eddie Jordan, fantastic character, would love to have a beer with him. I think he's just an all-round great guy, talks no nonsense, no bullshit, he will tell you as it is. And I like that. I like that for him. I really do appreciate him. He's not like a politician like these new F1 bloody driver managers are. These team principals. They're always like very philosophical about things. Eddie Jordan would just say it as it was. Least favourite, I would have to say Colin Collas, because if you ever notice where Colin Collas goes, the team suddenly goes into a deep decline and he either struggles for a couple of years after his departure, or the team goes bankrupt completely, because I'm sure Colin Collas's job was just literally go into a team that's struggling, suck the money out of it for himself, and then leave. Happened to HRT, it happened to Caterham, he put Sauber into serious decline at one point as well, when he stood in briefly, if I remember rightly. There was other teams as well in the past, going back into the 90s, early 2000s. I mean, the chances are the teams wouldn't have survived anyway, but it's just too suspicious. Colin Collas only ever gets brought in or appoints himself up there as team principal when the team's failing, and then not long after he's there, the team disappears. Yeah, don't agree. Matthew's second question. Oh, you didn't notice, I know you didn't. Matthew's second question is, which is your favourite Wetherspoons to go to in Sheffield? I like the Benjamin Huntsman. Now, funny enough, I was there at the weekend. I was there on Saturday. I was in Sheffield. I went to a festival, a day festival at the Network in Sheffield. If you've never been there, go there. It's fantastic. It was called Thanos Festival. Very Yorkshire, I know. Thanos. And yeah, it was a fantastic venue. Highly recommend it. There's 3 side stages, so there's like one big main stage area, capacity probably around 600 to 700. There's a second stage area with approximately maybe 300 to 400, and then a really little stage in the middle, stage 3, that holds probably about 150, something like that. So caters to all size bands, and during that festival in the day, it had all various size bands playing throughout the day in the different zones, and you could walk in between them all, just free range. Absolutely fantastic. It was really, really good day. £20 a ticket as well. 20 quid a ticket, and with some cracking bands. The Chase, the Claws, the Lilacs, Harriet Rose, Lottery Winners, Skylights, Skinner Brothers. Who else was there? Kairos. Jack Fletcher Band. There was a lot of phenomenal bands, and for 20 quid I would have paid £20 to see either one of those bands on their own at their own gig, and you got all that for 20 quid. And I'm talking, there were loads of others as well that I can't mention. There were just too many to mention. Matilda Shake, were they there as well? Anyway, fantastic day, highly recommend it. I've gone massively off topic already. I've only just started recording, but yeah, highly recommend the Network in Sheffield. You're clearly there because you like the Benjamin Huntsman. It's just down the road from there. Get yourself to the Network. Cracking venue. I like the Benjamin Huntsman as well, and that's where we went for tea. That's why I brought Sheffield up. It was a long-winded way around it, I know, Matthew, but yes, the Benjamin Huntsman, we went there for tea. I like it. It's nice vibe spoons. The food's decent enough. You get what you're given with the spoons, don't you? You know it's all just warmed up, ready to go food, but if you need a quick bite to eat, it's just as fast as a fast food restaurant these days, isn't it? No matter how busy it is, you put a food order in, within 10 minutes you've got your food. unlimited amount of sauce as well, and I'm a sucker for barbecue sauce, and they've started putting the mango chutney in sauce bottles. So if you get a curry, normally you just get a little pot of mango chutney. There's never enough of them 2 poppadoms that you give you, so now you get a mango chutney sauce bottle as well, so you just squirt as much mango chutney as you want. I think I went through half a bottle with my tikka masala. But yeah, Benjamin Huntsman, cracking venue. If we ever go for days out in Sheffield, day drinking, or go out for a night out, the night always starts at Benjamin Huntsman. The other one just round the side as well, at the side of City Hall, I can't remember what that one's called. That one's quite nice because it always looks busy from the outside, but then when you go in it's absolutely dead. I think it's because people just assume there's less seating, so it'll always be rammed. But if you ever just want a quiet drink, go to that one. I can't remember the name of it. But yeah, either way, I do like the Benjamin Huntsman as well. I don't know if there's any other spoons in Sheffield. I'm sure there probably is. I mean, there's 2 within like 3 yards of each other, so I'm sure there's probably another one, but I've never been there. The only other bar I can highly recommend is All Bar 1, which is if you go further up that road. So you come out the Benjamin Huntsman, you go round to the left, the Spoons is on your right, the second Spoons, you go straight up that road, the road curves round to the right, it's at the end of the road there, looking at you, winking at you, just to the right hand side. And that does a fantastic cocktail called Irish Disco Biscuit. Oh, when it's 2 for 1 on cocktails, I'm straight there at All By One. You get Baileys, extra whiskey, crunched up Oreos, ice cream in it. It's just basically like having an alcoholic smoothie. It's just delicious. And they put an Oreo in the top as well for you to buy. Oh, fantastic. Exquisite. So yeah, All By One. When there's an happy hour on, 2 for 1 on cocktails, get yourself an Irish Disco Biscuit. There you go, Matty. I've answered your question and more besides. Get yourself to network after a Benjamin Huntsman, and then when you fancy a quick drink afterwards, go to All Bar One and get yourself an Irish Disco Biscuit. Its third question is, will you be giving out minus points in future Cruel Room episodes? Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, this is a really bizarre one. I always used to give out minus points, didn't I, in the Cruel Wall series, and in the first Cruel Room series I gave out minus points as well. But then I introduced Palmer of the Week back into it, and obviously now Latifi of the Week. So I always kind of feel like that's fitting punishment enough, but I think in some circumstances I am going to have to maybe see about scoring minus points again. But yeah, I would like to. I don't know why I haven't, to be honest. I don't know why I haven't these last couple of seasons, but I always say at the start of every video that they can score minus points, and that's true, but I think the trouble is now, because I've brought the ruling in of you get 3 Latifis and you're out, so to speak, you know, any more mistakes from there, you're disqualified. I think that kind of nil and voids the minus points, because the drivers that are getting minus points are probably going to end up getting disqualified anyway. But then again, from a humour point of view, and to make it silly and make it funny, then yeah, I probably do need to start scoring minus points again. So maybe I won't score any for this year, but I am looking at doing it next year. I'm thinking of revising the Cruel Room format a little bit, because there's a few people now that have adopted the said scoring 10 points to each driver role. I won't go into names, but yeah, there's quite a lot of people doing it now. So I'm going to mix the format up and see how long it takes them to copy me. Let's put it that way. So the minus points on Cruel Rooms, maybe not this season now. I've not really started doing it unless Lance Stroll really pisses me off and I'm disqualifying to score minus points, something like that. But yeah, next year there's a subtle change coming, I would say that. Next up we have Dave, F1 Games PlayStation. He doesn't ask a question, he just puts oh dear. There you go. Cheers, Dave. Oh dear to you as well. I've just been singing your praises as well. Go watch part 1, Dave. I know you're not watching this now because you didn't ask a fucking question. But if you go watch part 1, I was singing your praises about the all seasons, and as well how to give you tips and how to get better during the ERL races. But yeah, you just put oh dear, do you? I offer life-changing advice to you, Dave. Can't even be asked to ask me a question. Just put oh dear. We're through. We're done, Dave. We're done. Next up we come to Anthony. Good to see you in the comments as always, buddy. He says, sorry for not commenting in God knows how long, been very busy. That's life, mate. That is life. No problem at all. You don't have to explain yourself to me. I don't mind at all. It's just great to see you back in the comments once again. He asks, apart from F1 and racing games, what other games do you like? E.g. adventure, visual, novels, murder, mystery, etc. I mean, there's a whole multitude. As I mentioned in the 5 non-racing games that I like in part 1, There's quite a few games that I do like, such as like Battlefield Bad Company 2 was a great game. Although I don't like the Call of Duties that much, but the couple that I've played a lot of Battlefields and I do enjoy those. I have played Medal of Honor quite a few times. I enjoy those. So more like shooting that of like military based, I would say. Things like games like The Getaway. I don't know what they kind of come up with, like a shoot 'em up gang style thing. Of course, Grand Theft Autos. I like those as well. GTA 5 I wasn't asked about, but I know a lot of people are going to think that's crazy, but we're 10 years on now, you know, and we're still plugging GTA 5, like, fuck's sake, give it a rest. Just come out with GTA 6 or just fuck off with it, you know, like, the last couple have been annoying for me, to be honest. They've kind of lost the sense of what Grand Theft Auto is all about, in my mind anyway, but there you go. So yeah, I would say adventure. I mean, for the Wii, I'm not really into racing or shooting, to be honest. I'm into games like this. I'll just grab one for you. Just going to escape off screen. Where is it? Like that kind of thing. The Wii is really good for these kind of like puzzle ones. A Boy and His Blob. Sounds really wrong these days, doesn't it? You can tell it was a mid-2000s game. But yeah, Boy and His Blob's a fantastic game that's more like quests and things like that. You have to go... A spaceship crashes and the boy finds the blob, and the blob can turn into a ladder and things to get you out of situations, and you can go hunting for things. I mean, it's meant to be a kid's game, but it is quite a good game. I mean, I like it anyway. So, for the Wii, I'm mainly based on those kind of games. It's really good with the obviously the controller, the nunchuck, and the remote that moves, so it works in that sense. And then for other stuff, when it's not racing, it's either like GTA, stuff like that, older games, and yeah, various things like that. His second question is, have you ever watched SpongeBob? If yes, what was your favourite episode? Well, I have watched SpongeBob. I've not watched it in a long, long time. Now, I can't remember the episode numbers because it's been so long, but I just remember one where... I'm laughing at it already. There was one where... there was Squidward, Patrick, and SpongeBob all toasting marshmallows around the fire, and Patrick kept burning his, and he kept going, oh, oh, like that, and slinging it, and kept it in Squidward's face. I don't know what episode that were, Anthony. If you could tell me which one that one were, I would love to watch it again. I remember, I mean, I must have been about, what, 15, 16 at the time, and being really uncool to still be watching SpongeBob at that age. But yeah, honestly, I was in absolute bits. That was probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen on telly. It was, oh, oh, and they just slung the stick and just Squidward's miserable face just getting pelted with marshmallow. It just really, really made me laugh, and still does to this day. Look, I've just remembered it straight off the top of my head. And then the only other thing that I remember from like the first, I think they've had a couple of movies now, but I only ever saw the first SpongeBob movie. Yeah, the first SpongeBob movie, 2006 that was, wasn't it? And yeah, I mean that was a good film. I mean, it was solid, wasn't it? Well, it was just cheesy as always. But yeah, the one thing that I always remember laughing at that as was like such a really ridiculous thing. But it was Mr. Krabs, obviously, when he finds out the king's coming. This is before we know he's stolen the crown, allegedly. And there's Mr. Krabs obviously there, like penning on. Like a new price for Krabby Patties and stuff, and then Squidward says like, "You're going to charge $199 for a Krabby Patty with cheese, Mr. Squidward, with cheese." And that always sticks with me. So if anyone's ever like trying to charge something like a ridiculous price for something, I always quote that. So yeah, if anyone's like, "How much is that?" I don't know, game, for example, on a car boot stall or something. Oh, that's 15 quid, mate. A car boot with cheese, you know. But that's how I use it anyway. So yeah, there you go, Anthony. I can't remember the exact episode, but my favourite episode was that one with the marshmallows. Just, oh, oh, and just slinging them. His third question is, how do I get a girlfriend as an F1 fan? Well, I mean, you've come to the right place here, haven't you? Just the ladies crawl all over me. Absolutely. It's fucking hell. Anthony, you couldn't have asked the worst person in the world. In fact, you could have done. You could have asked Dave, F1 Games PlayStation, but you didn't. So I appreciate that, but you've come to the second worst person you could ever ask. I don't know. I don't know. That's my honest answer. The only thing I can recommend is just, you know, if you ever go out on a date with someone and they say, what are you into? Be honest. Just say you like motorsport, you like racing, you like Formula 1, and she'll either get it or she won't get it, and that's the end of that. You know, I can't see this day and age how anything's, you know, really going to stop you. The only other thing I can recommend is go to Europe. Go somewhere in, I mean, every time we were away racing when I was in motorsport and you said you would work for a racing team, the ladies came a-coming. And they were definitely more like into it, shall we say, that you were part of a racing team. You say that over in England, like, oh, nerd, oh, boring, oh, you work on cars that go round in circles. Yeah, I did. But yeah, over in Europe, it's more appreciated, it's more respected. It's like a skilled job role over there. You know, if you work in motorsport and you're in Europe, or you work in motorsport and you're from Europe, it's more like an accredited thing. Over here, it's just like, oh, fucking hell, weird. That kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, that's my advice, really. I just think, I don't know how you're going to get a girlfriend as an F1 fan, but I don't think that's the be-all and end-all, is it? You know, I'm sure there's other things that you enjoy and that you're good at, and that you'd maybe find a mutual common ground with someone with. Yeah, I mean, even if it's just like TV shows you like, mention SpongeBob. I'm sure every girl has got a favourite SpongeBob episode or can remember something about SpongeBob that they like. So maybe bring that up as a topic of conversation, then just slip in that you're an F1 fan as well. There you go, Anthony. You see, we work together there. Help you to help me. We've got it sussed. I'll let you know how it goes. But good questions. Thanks, Anthony. Next one is from Martin Hall, and he asks, hiya, Josh. My 3 questions are you looking forward to the BTCC video game? Now, I was, and this was supposed to be coming out in 2020, was it? And then was delayed to 2021, and now it's on R Factor, some of the licensing for the cars, and are we ever going to see that motorsport game? Are we ever going to see it? I'm not sure. Created by Motorsport Games, allegedly, which are just an absolute fraud of a company anyway. There's someone already covered the video on it on YouTube, which has talked about all of the things that they've done, and they either bleed a company dry into the ground or buy the licensing rights for things and then do nothing with them. The fact that R Factor's got the rights to this year's grid, or last year's grid, I can't remember, but either way, I don't have R Factor. Means to me that they've given up some of the licensing, so maybe something will happen at some point, but I'm not sure. I don't know, to be honest. But either way, if it comes out, I'll be buying it. If it never comes out, like I'm expecting it not to, then oh well, you know, I've still got plenty of other racing games that I really enjoy. Do Jade Edwards and Nick Alstead deserve to be on the BTCC grid when Gordon Shedden isn't? Now, it's a good question, and the thing is, like, you've got to look at the grid, haven't you, in the touring cars? And the trouble now is, since they've introduced this hybrid system, the touring cars has just become a hell of a lot more expensive. And I don't see how it is right that someone like Gordon Shedden isn't on the grid. But at the same time, I don't think it's right that teams like Team Dynamics can't enter for a year. You know, we've got no Team Dynamics this year that would have had a Gordon Shedden and would have had another top driver alongside. But as it was, you know, the funding is that difficult to get. And teams have to take what they can get in terms of sponsorship money and things like that. For Jade Edwards, I would fight her case a little bit more, to be honest with you, as opposed to just thinking she's a reject, because Jade Edwards must be the most unluckiest driver in the touring car since she's been in it. I've been at weekends for the past couple of years at Thruxton, for the touring cars of course, where she was running in the points and as close to the points, and then she gets roughed up in the last few laps. I think it was the race 3 at Thruxton last year. She was running inside the points and then got roughed up at the end in like the last 2 laps and tumbled down the order. She qualified well in the first race as well, and then she ended up picking the chuffing DRS board, not a DRS board, but you know what I mean, like a 100-metre board, and blocked the radiator up with that, which caused problems for her, so she had to pit. And you just look at Jade and you think, I mean, the epitome this season was Team Hard this year. Didn't get a car ready in time. She did no practice, no testing, in a brand new car. And she went on the inspired strategy that got Nick Hamilton 7th in that race in the same team. Jade Edwards was already well ahead of Nick Hamilton by time and distance and position. before her turbo pipe fell off because someone had not put it on right, she'd have probably got a podium. She'd have probably been round where Pearson was when Pearson got P3 and then got disqualified. So I think we missed an opportunity there to see Jade on the podium. And that's just how her season's been. I mean, this year, you can't really blame her. Team R, that car didn't come out for so many races. It kept breaking down. Thruxton was a write-off. Alton Park was a write-off because that's all the car kept doing. It was only that last race at Alton where she finished 16th. Then she joined back into the BTC racing squad, the One Motorsport squad. They're not running the BTC racing cars. They're running the Team Dynamics chassis, which, even though they're the same Honda, they're a completely different car. Like, how mad is that? The same Honda Civic, but it's a completely different car. I find it phenomenal. So she's had a couple of 16th, 17th places. I think Jade's time will come. She's not a championship contender. She's not a podium runner. But I think she's got a chance to be a solid midfielder if she just gets the bloody luck. You know, I really do. As for Nick Alstead, he's further down the field. Absolutely, you know, he is one of the drivers just propping up the grid, so to speak. But I had a chat with him at Donington Park, and do you know what? He's a fantastic guy. I got a poster signed by him, and I were having a chat to him, and it was good because we were watching the first race. The autograph session happened after the first race, and I could see that it was catching up to Jack Butel and the other gaggle of Team Hard cars towards the back of the grid. And I said, "Oh, you're having a good battle with Jack Butel there. I could see you were gaining on him." And then with a couple of laps left, you obviously dropped back. He went, "Yeah, I fell off." You know, just like straight John Ball. I was like, "Oh, right, no worries." He went, "Yeah, we were a second a lap quicker than those group of like 5 or 6 cars ahead." I says, "Oh, right." I says, "And what happened?" He went, "I kept falling off." You know, so I think he knows his own limitation, his own limits. He knows he's not going to be a regular point scorer. He knows he's not going to be a front runner or anything like that, but I think he's just enjoying his time, and I think it's probably one of his goals and one of his dreams in life to one day race in the British Touring Car Championship, and he's doing that, so sometimes I always think you don't have to just look at results to see what a driver's doing, Perfect example of that with Nick Hamilton, of course, before he's left Team Hard now, but it were more than results to Nick Hamilton. Yes, he was at the back of the grid for most of the time, but some of them, he was making steps forward, but you couldn't see it because he was still at the back, but he was closer to the midfield. And, he was all about, imagine that from a young age being told that you're not going to be able to walk, and it was going to be severely, mobility reduced, he was going to have reduced mobility, probably wasn't going to be able to walk in life and not be able to do much. And now he's a racing driver. Like, how good and inspiring is that for, disabled people that are maybe in a similar situation to Nick Hamilton with cerebral palsy and things like that? The fact that he's at the back of the grid, yeah, okay, but it's more than just that. It's the fact he's there, the fact that he's there in this position to be able to race in the British Touring Car Championship is phenomenal in itself. And the fact that he doesn't ask for help from his brother either, Lewis, there was a season a couple of years back where he was with Sean Ullenby with the Audi, wasn't he? Couldn't finish the rest of the season off because his sponsorship pulled out. His brother asked, "Can I help?" And he was like, "No, I want to do this on my own accord, thank you, I want to do it for myself." And yeah, I'm sure, the name, Nick Hamilton, Lewis Hamilton's brother, will get him sponsorship opportunities that he wouldn't do if he wasn't Lewis Hamilton's brother. I totally get that. But that's not his fault at the same time, is it? You can't help who your family is, and Nick's doing it because he wants to do it, and I think he did a great job, and I hope to see him back next year in the touring cars. So yeah, there has been some rejects in touring cars over the time. I mean, in recent years, Mark Howard is the main one that springs to mind. He was just crashing every left, right and centre. Kelvin Fletcher, the bloody actor from EastEnders when he tried. Awful. Terrible drivers that were dangerous with it, caused some big accidents. I think the calibre has been raised so much in touring cars this year and in the last few years that even the backmarkers now are not actual backmarkers. Like, I remember starting to watch the touring cars in the mid-2000s, and you had drivers like Rick Kerry, Jim Pocklington, Simon Blankley, John George, Chris James. These drivers were getting lapped in 25-minute races or whatever they were, the lap alternative, 15 laps around Snetterton, and you'd see those drivers get lapped in the same race. They not had any problems. They were just that slow and off the pace. Now, we're calling Nick Alstead a backmarker, but he's not getting lapped. It's a big difference. So I think much like Formula One now, you see Alpha Tauri as the backmarker team, but The backmarker team was Minardi when they used to get lap 4 and 5 times a race. And then you think, well, hang on a minute, you go back further that and you used to have the 40s. They used to get lap 6 and 7 laps a race, you know. So, yeah, Nick Alstead, you know, probably someone else should be better in that Accelerate car, you know. It can clearly deliver some fantastic results. Tom Ingram in the championship battle. But at the end of the day, the teams need paid drivers like that that'll be paying a decent amount of money to the team to get someone like Tom Ingram, who's maybe not got the full financial backing, to be able to subsidise his rate so he's able to race, get the wins, get the podiums. Colin Turkington, for example, won the 2009 season. West Surrey Racing lost the RAC sponsorship. He didn't race for 2010. You know, if you'd have had a big paid driver at the side, you could have said, look, your fee's going up to this much. We can subsidise Collins. It can still race. So, yeah, big question. Sorry about that. That was a massively long answer, but I hope you appreciate it. I don't think the backmarkers this day in touring cars are backmarkers for the wrong reasons, you know. And I think it's based on an individual basis, really. But yeah, you know, would we love to see 29 cars all fighting for victory? Absolutely. It doesn't happen in Formula 1. It's certainly not going to happen in a lower grade British Touring Car Championship, is it? So, there you go. His third and final question is, will Lewis Hamilton be another world title winner? Yeah, it's a tough one, that, isn't it? As much as I would love to see him do it, realistically, will he? I mean, he's extended the 2 years now with Mercedes. But unfortunately for Mercedes, I don't think they're making progress. I mean, we got rid of the no side pod concept, which, you know, absolutely, they gave it a go, and I have to respect them for that. I commend them for it. You've got to be ingenuitive in Formula 1. That's what it's all about. They've given it a season and a half. It hasn't worked. They've admitted that, and they've gone back to side pods. Fine, I get it. But we're still not seeing progress. You know, it's troublesome. It really is. They've had less podiums this year than they had last year, and that car last year we thought was a dog. But this year seems to be a bad car, but it's not doing as badly. It's really weird. It's like everyone's like gone down the order together, you know. Everyone's lost pace together. And the Mercedes car is a terrible one, but I think they've been let off by the fact that Ferrari have done badly this season. You know, they've had poor pace, so they need to be thankful for that. Aston Martin, they need to be thankful there's only Alonso in the Aston Martin squad, because he's the only car. There's only one Aston Martin car doing anything decent. So that's 3 cars already that should in theory be ahead that aren't most of the time. Yeah, as much as I would love to see Lewis Hamilton win another title, I think he is deserving of 8 titles, really. I just can't see it happening. I just cannot see it happening for myself personally. I don't think the car's quite going to be there. Will he become back to a regular winner and a regular podium scorer again? Absolutely. I think Mercedes have got that underneath them. I think they've got the capability to do that. But I just don't feel like it's going to be just enough to net him a title in the next couple of years he's signed for anyway. Will he extend the contract? Who knows? But for now we know we're going to have him for 2 more years in Formula 1. That's fantastic for the sport. And yeah, I hope Mercedes can get up there. But at the minute, they are letting him down a little bit. The next set of questions come from Leo Wilson, and his first question is, if your Cruel Room series was a thing in the early 2010s, how difficult would it be to score the Caterhams, Virgins, HRT drivers every race? Yeah, that would be pretty difficult, wouldn't it? I mean, again, backmarkers getting lapped 6 and 7 times in a race back in those days, weren't they? They had to bring back the 107% rule. Such was the lack of pace with those cars. I think the way I would have had to do it basically with those drivers is I think I would have had to make like a B class, so to speak, and make them their own champion within those 6 teams because, yeah, it would have certainly been unfair for the other drivers if I was scoring them a good amount of points every race. The way I would have had to done it is I would have had to split them into another category. Maybe not instantly, of course. I wouldn't have planned for it because you wouldn't plan for 3 teams to be that drastically bad, would you? But the way I would have ended up doing it would be just to say, look, I'm going to have to split this. I'm going to have to make the HRTs, Manners and Caterhams all different, different to the others. Score those as a separate division. You know, if they beat each other, if they out-qualify each other, if they outrace each other within those 6 cars, that's how I would have to score the points. Or maybe make sure they could only score like a maximum of 7, maybe. to give them some chance of finishing a bit further up against others that were maybe doing terribly in the season, but also not really given the chance to actually win the overall title, because it would have been unfair for, say for example, Bruno Senna to win the overall 2010 championship, because I thought he had a cracking season in the HRT where his best finish was like 15th or something, you know. Wouldn't have been fair in that sense. So yeah, that's probably how I would have had to done it. Maybe only score him a maximum of say 7 for any race, regardless of how well it went, or split them into a completely different B category and give them their own points shared between those 6 drivers based on who beat who. Number 2, did you enjoy the 2020 F1 season because of the massive changes on the race calendar due to the P word, I can't say it, and the fact the midfield teams were strong enough to challenge for podiums at almost every race? I didn't. I've got to be honest with you. Yeah, the 2020 season for me, I mean, it was good when it came back, obviously, because we were still all locked inside, weren't allowed to do fuck all, were we? So it was nice when it came back, but then at the same time, it was, yeah, I don't know, it was just a weird year. To be honest, I've erased most of 2020s out of my head. Just the entire thing, not just F1, just all of it. I just forget it. Everything's pre-COVID and after COVID. But yeah, you know, I do think there were some good moments. I did enjoy seeing different circuits. It was great to see Turkey back. We can't dispute that. It was fantastic to see Turkey back. It was good to see the likes of Imola return, and then from that we've ended up extending the contract with Imola. That's probably been one of the best things out of it. Then you look at like Mugello that we got in for 1 round. We had the return of Nürburgring for 2 rounds, did we? Or just for the 1 round? Yeah, just the 1. Then we saw the outer circuit of Qatar, not Qatar, sorry. We had the outer circuit of Bahrain. So yeah, it did bring some its own unique set of weird circumstances that you can look back at that season and go, yeah, weren't that strange? You know, we had the Algarve in Portugal as well, didn't we? So yeah, it was unique in that sense, but in the same time, you think, well, hang on a minute, these have hosted fantastic races, some of them, especially Nürburgring again. Why aren't you going back? Oh, cost money. Well, hang on a minute, no one had any money during COVID, and you could do it for free, but now you want to charge them silly amounts of money again? It's wrong, really. So yeah, as much as it did please me to see some absolute gems of the circuit's return, it was very disappointing to know that they're probably never going to come back again. Yeah, and as for the overall season itself, I can't really remember much about it, but yeah, it was good to see Perez do well, it was good to see Gasly win. Yeah, lots of good podiums, weren't there? Question 3. Kvyat did an interview earlier this year saying that after 2016 he didn't want to be at Toro Rosso, had zero motivation and didn't like working with them, while Stites was extremely motivated. Does that justify why he underperformed in 2017? Most probably. I mean, I think at the end of the day, this is where it all got difficult for Red Bull, didn't it, in the Red Bull Junior program? Because wasn't that the year 2017 where they didn't want Kvyat, but then they dropped all of their junior drivers, so they had literally no one to put in. So then this is when we ended up with the weird situation of getting Gasly and Brendan Hartley in for a few races in 2017. Sainz moved to Renault, Kvyat got dumped, Kvyat came back, scored the only point again at the US Grand Prix, proved his worth, but then got dumped for 2018. Then they'd still not got any rookie drivers, so brought him back again. It was just a mess and a farce, wasn't it? So I could understand totally why he wasn't motivated in 2017, because he was wrongfully dropped, really, from the Red Bull seat in 2016. It was just to give Max Verstappen the opportunity. Max was always going to get fed up being sat at Toro Rosso for too long, so they had the slightest opportunity to dump Kvyat back down there. He didn't want to race with Toro Rosso, but had no other option, so continued. I could understand why he was motivated, absolutely. I think I've said it on several occasions before. Danny Kvyat's career was shat on by Red Bull, yet he was given the seat alongside Danny Ricciardo in 2016 for the Red Bull, 2015 as well, of course. But he was always just going to be a stopgap for Max Verstappen, and I think Red Bull knew that. But once again, they probably promised Kvyat the earth. Then we move on to Will F1 again. Again, question 5, because fuck your rules and time. Yeah, I know. Tell me about fucking time. When are you finally going to admit that Lewis Hamilton is a living treasure and the best racing driver of all time and should be a 10 times world champion? Well, I mean, he's a very talented driver, absolutely. You cannot dispute it, is he? Is he one of the GOATs in Formula 1? Absolutely, of course he is. The 10 times world champion thing, I mean, you could look at it from either perspective, really, can't you? You know, there's loads of ways that you can look at championships and how many championships they should have had. You can look at 2007 and say, well, hang on a minute, Lewis Hamilton should have won that. That makes him an 8-time world champion. You look at 2016, should have won that. That makes him a 9-time. Should have won 2021. That makes him a 10-time world champion. But then you can look at it the other way and go, well, he didn't deserve 2008, so that takes him down to 6. You know, you could say for the 2014, 2015 season, it was just the best car. That doesn't count. You know, 2016, for God's sake, that Mercedes car couldn't stop winning. It's a bit like Red Bull now, but that was Rosberg that won that one. So you could say 2014, yeah, just the unbeatable car. It's the car. It's the car. 2018, you should have said, well, if Vettel didn't make that mistake in Hockenheim and then continue to spin. So you could look at it from both perspectives. So realistically, the way I would look at it is you could maybe say to Lewis's career, is the 2 he shouldn't have had? Maybe. But is the 3 he should have had? I mean, there's 1 definitely, isn't there? We're not disputing 1. But yeah, you could look at it from both ways. And I think, yeah, the best case scenario is that Hamilton would have been a 10-time champion by now. You could do the same with anyone. You could do the same with Ayrton Senna before his untimely death. You could have said, would he won the 94 season? Well, he was quick, but the car was inconsistent. You know, you could say Michael Schumacher. Could he have been a 10-time world champion? Yeah, he could have won 98 and 99 had he not broken his leg. He could have won 05, he could have won 06. You know, so there could have been 10 times there as well. So yeah, Hamilton is absolutely a fantastic driver. I think he's one of the greatest of all time. I mean, the stats don't lie. And the fact that we've been able to witness history so much in our lifetime, you know, especially for me, I was able to watch Michael Schumacher rise and get the 7 world titles. I've been able to see Lewis Hamilton match that. I've been now able to watch Max Verstappen potentially take it to another level as well. It's exciting. It is exciting. As much as it makes the races boring at the time, I am one that appreciates where we are, and yeah, it's just nice to see. The next one comes from my good friend Adam. How are you doing, Adam? Hope you're well. He asks a couple of questions. His first one is, money being no object, are there any road trip adventures you would do? The only one I would really love to do, and I regret never doing, is that I would love to take a car, drive it to the Nürburgring, and take it for a lap round the Nürburgring, have a weekend there, and then come back, and just all do it driven, just drive it all. I'd love to do the North Coast 500 at some point, up Scotland way. That just looks amazing. Some of the roads look quite treacherous, and I think that kind of adventure would be one to buy like a 500 quid shitbox. Not that you can buy one these days, but if you were lucky enough to pick a car up for £1,000 that could maybe just about do the North Coast 500, you know, some tricky tight roads. I know you could take a really good sports car and enjoy the roads, but to not give a shit about a car and rag the absolute fucking tits off it and really just have a fun time with your mates, probably sleep in the car as well, you know, get an airbed slung it back, take the back seats out, whatever. I think that'd be really special, so that would be something I would love to tick off. And Nürburgring, it would have been something I would have loved to have ticked off, but yeah, I don't think that'll probably happen now, to be honest with you, the way the world's fucking going. I've not got a passport anymore, so that's expired, because I just don't see the point in going abroad. I think, yeah, there's been a lot of things going off in the world recently, and I don't always agree with everything that's going on, and I just think, do you know what? I can't help what's happening, but I can help by not giving other fucking countries my custom. So I'm going to stick to England, stick to supporting local, etc. I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but yeah, my passport's expired. I'm not going to get another one. I'm not going to renew it. So England is for me. The second question is, if you could travel back in time, what music, gigs, concerts and or bands and artists would you like to see most? I mean, without question, is it? It's Queen. I mean, Freddie died 3 years before, obviously, I was born. The last tour was in 87, was it? So several years before Freddie even passed away, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I would just absolutely adore if I could have an opportunity to go back in time and watch one artist, one band perform. It would just be incredible to see Freddie Mercury live. Sadly, one that's never going to be able to be achievable, but my God, if someone could offer me a trip in a time machine, I would do that. That'd be amazing. Other acts and artists that I would love to see and go back in time. I think it'd be really nice to go back and look at someone's like start of their career. You know, it'd be lovely to go see someone like Oasis, for example, playing a pub to 10 people and no one listening. you know, and Barry from behind the bar shouting Last Orders while they're singing Wonderwall or something, you know. I think that'd be quite special to witness someone, you know, before they made it, you know. The only one that I've come close to seeing is Lewis Capaldi. I saw Lewis Capaldi supporting Bastille at Birmingham O2 Academy just as Grace was about to go into the top 10, I think it was. No, not Grace, sorry. No, Grace was about to enter the top 40s. His new single, Grace, was about to enter the top 40, and I was getting really excited for that. It hadn't yet, I think it was like 46, and then in the midweeks it had gone into the top 40, and we saw him. He's like, oh, on Friday I could have a top 40 single, you know. And he was such a great character, such a great guy, a lovable bloke. He really came across well with his stage presence, sang fantastically, and then not long after that he absolutely exploded. So yeah, but he was already sort of on the cusp of rising there already, but we did see him while he was quite small. But yeah, I would love to see some band in a pub somewhere and then see him go on to achieve greatness. So yeah, that's a great question, that, Adam. So yeah, bands that of course we all know. Queen, I would love to see them at their peak, at their prime, you know, Freddie at his best, a full-on Queen show. And I think it would be quite nice to see a band that we know and love now, that are so well endured, that can sell arenas, you know, Coldplay, someone like that, some really big acts, see them at their like beginnings. And you never know, with the amount of local artists and small artists I'm supporting at the moment, I hope one day that some of these make it to absolute superstardom, can go to sell-out arenas and things like that, and it might happen, so I might live that dream yet. That one is still a possible dream, but yeah, for now, that's what I would say. Queen for definite, and I hope to see a band that can go on to absolute greatness, and I can say, I were there in that grotty pub with 10 people. Terry Parcs, good to see you in the comments, Terry, as always. He asks, if you could go back in time to another F1 era, what would it be? Yeah, I mean, what era? It'd have to be the 80s, wouldn't it? It'd have to be the Senna and Prost. I would love to see the atmosphere inside the paddock and from the fans, because it was before social media. I would love to see how well respected or how hated each other's fans were. That'd be quite a nice fly on the wall thing to witness that, you know. Maybe even James Hunt and Niki Lauda, you know. That would be something special. But yeah, I would definitely love to see the Prost and Senna era of the 80s, mid-80s, late 80s, early 90s, that sort of tussle and battle that they had amongst themselves. And I would love to be a fly on the wall in the grandstands and in the paddock to see how much animosity there was actually between them, and how much animosity there was between the teams when they changed teams, of course, how much animosity in the same team, and how much animosity within the fan group as well, within the Formula 1 community as a whole, really. The next question is, which F1 circuit would you like to see bombed? Oh, I mean, there's a few, really. I mean, we're not doing Russia anymore, so that one's fine. What circuit would I most like to see bombed? Oh, I mean, Saudi Arabia is shit. I mean, they're trying to do it themselves anyway, with about fucking missiles flying over there. Abu Dhabi, that's quite boring. Yawn Marina, of course. Yeah. Let's pick one off the current grid. There's too many though, isn't there? You think I'll just pick the grid? The ones that are on the current calendar, and then you think, well, hang on a minute, there's probably more than one. The question, I can only bomb one. Which F1 circuit would you like to see bombed? Right, I'm going to go for it. Saudi Arabia, definitely, get rid of that. Abu Dhabi, get rid of that. That circuit can go. I mean, I'm even forgetting, what other circuits have we had? Oh, Las Vegas, we're not even gone there yet, but that can get in the bin already. But Azerbaijan can go for me. Not a fan of Azerbaijan. Yeah, we'll leave it at that for now. I've probably missed a big one off Anta. Probably missed an absolute whopper off that everyone's going to say, you missed that one, in the comments. But yeah, they're there. I'll get rid of those, Terry. AR76 asks, of course, Alex Roby, what is your internet history? My internet history is we started with Supernet, and then we moved to Sky, and then we went to Virgin. Yeah, there you go. That's our internet history. To be honest, there's nothing special in my internet search history. I can guarantee you that. Everything that I talk about is pretty much what I look for. You know, I'm always looking for gaming stuff. I'm always looking for Formula One models. I'm always looking for F1 statistics, F1 race results to do the crawl rooms with. I'm just really just all over the place with the internet search history. Music, gigs, booking tickets. To be honest, that's probably all you're ever going to see. See tickets, Ticketmaster gigs and tours, all that kind of information is all you're going to find on my search history, because that's what I'm always looking at to buy tickets. Second question is favourite F1 livery? Ooh, ever. Probably an Orange Arrows of one year. 2002 was quite a nice livery. I also like the 2008 Under Earth. As much as people hated that one, I was the one that liked it. I was that guy. I did like the 2014 Force India livery, not gonna lie. I did enjoy that one. Particularly the one that they had at Bahrain where Perez scored the podium, because they had the orange side pods. There was black for like predominantly the rest of the year, but for that Bahrain race there were orange down the side, and that was really nice. What other liveries did I like? I did like the Force Indias in pink. I did enjoy those. They were quite nice. The Jordan, the 2001 Jordan, that was a fantastic car. That was a phenomenally good-looking car, as well as a cracking livery. So yeah, there's loads actually. I wouldn't be able to pick out a definite favourite, to be honest with you. His final question is thoughts on the Isle of Man TT. I'm indifferent to it, to be honest with you. I mean, the guys are nut jobs that are riding the bikes at those speeds in those conditions, and with the houses so close and like pedestrian crossings and all sorts, just literally there, you know, the street lampposts and benches and all sorts, literally mere millimetres away from where you're racing is quite crazy. I mean, even curbs and stuff, the lethal bridges that they go over. I think they're absolute nutcases, and I'm indifferent, to be honest. I'm not a massive bike lover. I think it's always sad every year when we know we go there, you know you're going to hear about a death, and if it's not the death of a biker, it's a death of a spectator or a photographer or a marshal. There was one a few years back, weren't there, where it like broke the record for most deaths in the weekend, because there was like 4 spectators, 3 bikers killed or something, and it's tragic. It is tragic to see death, it is, but out of everyone that races in any kind of motorsport anywhere around the world, I think the TT riders know exactly what they're taking on. So, you know, if you're prepared to take the risk, then that's fine. But I think for spectators and marshals to get involved in these incidents, I think is very sad. You know, you don't go to a racing event to watch it to die, do you? So, you know, no one ever goes with the intention of dying, but the TT riders know the risks. They accept those. The spectators, do they accept them? Well, on your ticket it always says motorsport can be dangerous, but you never fully truly appreciate the risk until it's necessarily too late. So yeah, I'm indifferent with the TT, to be honest. I just think it is sad that there's guaranteed a death pretty much every year they go there. So yeah, an unusual one. C32 Scotland, good to see you, buddy. He's always in the live chats during the premieres of the crawl rooms and in the comment section of the crawl room videos as well, so great to see you, buddy. I'm doing well, thank you. And he says, if there was a crawl room / wall series in 2019, which drivers would have been disqualified? Well, we know Lance Stroll, don't we? That goes without saying. Lance Stroll would have been disqualified. Valtteri Bottas would have probably pissed me off, so he'd have probably gone. What year was that with 2019? Who else was there anyone else there that was pissing me off that time? There was no Latifi, was there? And no Palmer. Bloody hell, no Latifi or Palmer. Bloody hell, 2019 was an odd season, wasn't it? Who was in the Toro Rosso? That was Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly there, weren't they? They'd have been okay. Maybe Albon would have had to be disqualified, unfortunately, because of his poor performance. But then again, he was very unlucky, wasn't he, at times, in that 2019 season. But he'd have probably been on a final warning. Pierre Gasly... No, Pierre Gasly, did he start the 20... I can't remember what happened. Yeah, 2019 was when Pierre got dropped, wasn't it? So Pierre Gasly probably would have not survived. He'd have probably been disqualified. Well, who else? I'm trying to think who were even in it. Trying to think who did what, but yeah, definitely those. I would say Alex Albon probably would have escaped, but been on a final warning. Pierre Gasly more than likely would have done. Stroll certainly would have done, and Bottas probably would have done as well, to be honest. His second question is: last time I asked you what your best PS2 game was, so this time, what was the worst PS2 game you've ever played? Well, I try and avoid the shit ones, I've got to be honest with you. Worst PS2 game I've ever played. Worst PS2 game, that's difficult, that I have. That's a tough one. Is there anyone that I've got up here that... No, there's probably none on there. I mean, obviously I wouldn't keep the shit ones, would I? So... has there been any games I've bought and then instantly regretted? Driver 3 was a little bit disappointing, wasn't it? I've got to be honest, that's the one that's only popping into my head. As much as I appreciate it, and graphically, wow, that was an absolutely incredible feat of what they were able to do on the PlayStation 2 back in that time. But the game itself just was a little bit too glitchy, a little bit too buggy, wasn't it? And it was just really struggling at the time because GTA 3 had come out, GTA Vice City had come out. It was under a lot of pressure to deliver. And although graphically it delivered the goods, I don't think gameplay-wise it delivered. There was a lot of glitches, a lot of trouble. But having said that, I still play it to this day. But there was many flaws in it. And if those flaws weren't there, the Driver series could have succeeded. But unfortunately it didn't. So yeah, I'd probably say Driver 3 for that one. A game that promised so much but maybe delivered not quite enough, did it? Question 3, he asked, the last question from C32 Scotland is: if you had to make the worst possible team in F1 history, which engine, chassis, driver from any era of the sport would you choose and why? Okie dokies then, no problems at all. Let's get stuck into this one. So, I would choose the Peugeot engine that Prost had during their time. In fact, you know what? Most of this I would just choose Prost, because it was an absolute awful campaign, wasn't it? 2000 was their worst campaign ever, wasn't it? So I would choose the engine that the Prost had in it, that shitty Peugeot. The chassis, I'd go for the Prost. If not, we'd try and stick it in a 40, should we? A 40 Ford from 1995, we'd give that a go. For drivers, it would have to be Jean-Denis Delatraz in the first of the cars. That would be absolutely stupendous to see him in that car. And Riccardo Rossi would have to be in the second. And if I was to have a reserve driver, I would put in Alex Young. I'd stick Alex Young in there, so get some Minardi drivers in there, get an Alex Young in, because he was absolutely awful, to the point where Minardi were like, look, don't bother turning up for a few races, we'll get someone else in, thanks. So yeah, Alex Young for me. And why? Well, because they're absolutely awful. I mean, the Prost that year with that engine in didn't score any points. The 40 Ford in 95 was just the firm back marker. It was absolutely dog shit, wasn't it? And the fact that they used that same chassis in 96 as well, just with a different front wing, yeah, probably makes the 96 car a little bit worse. So the one that's got the B on it's probably even worse. But yeah, those two cars, I mean, sheer awful engine. Peugeot and the Prost relationship weren't working out as it was planned there, was it? And then for the drivers, I mean, Jean-Denis Delatraz, the driver that got lapped 7 times or 3 times in 7 laps, something ridiculous like that, pulled over in one race because he got cramp. I mean, Tosso Rossi, does he need any kind of invitation? Riccardo Rossi, I don't think he does. And of course, for the reserve driver, as already mentioned, Alex Young, he was parked by Minardi. So yeah, very, very dismal. Warwick Bull asks, I have 2 questions for you, Mr. Moaning Yorkshireman. 1, do you have a favourite board game? Favourite board game for me would... I've not played any for a while, but I do like Frustration, the one where you have the... you have to get your men back, don't you? You have to get a 6 to get out your base. Then you have to get as many numbers as you can round it, but then the other teams can catch up, and if they land on you, you have to go back to the beginning and yeah, I remember having a game with my dad one night while my mum was out with a works night do. Me and my dad were playing that game for about 2 hours and we just kept wiping each other out every time. And the word frustration did really suit the game. So frustration is a fantastic game. I also like Connect 4. Something nice and simple. Something nice and simple. Connect 4, fantastic game. Got to have your wits about you. And yeah, I've not played any for years, but I would absolutely love to. You know, great games. Battleships as well, another great game. Warwick's second question is, do you think it's okay that someone in his mid-20s is still in education, as that's what I'm in at the moment? Well, absolutely. I can't see why that's an issue at all. I mean, I think most of my friends were still in education in mid-20s. I mean, my cousin now is 23, and he's only just started working. So yeah, I mean, I think that's quite a normal thing, actually, isn't it? Still be in education in mid-20s. So you leave school at 16, then you go on to sixth form. Sixth form's normally 2 or 3 years, isn't it? Depending on what course you take. Then from sixth form you go to uni, and depending on what you can take at uni, it can be up to 7 years. So, you know, you can either have a minimum of 3 years at uni. So say, for example, you take 2 years at sixth form, that takes you to 18/19. You have a 3-year course at uni, that still takes you to 21 or 22. So that's still early 20s. So then if you take a 5-year course, you're in your mid-20s. Take a 7-year course, you're in your late 20s. And you need to do it. I mean, if you want to be a doctor or a nurse or something, you need 7 years in university, or, you know, anything that's like really high up like that, like science especially. Yeah, you need many years. So there's nothing wrong with that at all, buddy. I don't think that's a silly question at all. And I think that's quite a noble thing, the fact that you're still in education at that age. I don't think there's anything wrong with it at all. You know, people are set out for life. I wasn't academic at all. The moment I left school, I was done with it. I went to college, and it was a hands-on college that had to do paperwork to go with it. Obviously, you had to do coursework, but 75% of your role there was hands-on, learning with your hands and doing. That's how I learn. Some people learn in a classroom. Some people learn by doing the exams, doing the tests, by going to university and having that structure. They can learn with a structure in place that's like a lesson plan, you know. Some people can learn on the fly, and some people can just learn. You can tell them, show them it once, and they get it. I'm more of I need to be shown it a couple of times, then I have to do it a couple of times, and then I'll slowly build the confidence up. So, yeah, the fact that you're in education still, buddy, in your mid-20s, I think is, well, it is fine. There's probably a lot of people doing it. There's more people doing it than you probably realise. So, yeah, knock yourself out, buddy, and I hope whatever you're doing, it works out well for you. That's all I can say. Next question comes from Laurie and Sander Jutte, who I'll be answering next. They missed the ballpark. They missed their deadline, but because I've been delayed with the series, they got in just in time, so that's all good. So Laurie asks, "Hi Josh, do you like Indian food?" I do like Indian food, but I don't like spicy. So to prove I don't really like Indian food, I would say that tikka masala or a madras, depending on where it's made, because madrasas can be quite spicy if you go into a restaurant, but if you have it as a takeaway, it's a little bit milder. Madras, tikka masala, korma, they're my limits. No hotter or spicier than that. And then when it comes to like sides and things, it's a plain naan bread and it's an onion bhaji. Onion bhajis have chili flakes in. That's my limit. So, yeah, I do love Indian food. I do love a good masala. I love a good korma. I love a good madras. But I don't go beyond those. Or is it a balti I have? I can't remember. And then rice, it's a pilau rice. I do like a good pilau rice, nice and flavoured, centred taste to it. But yeah, I just don't do spices. So not too hot, but I can have a little bit of heat, but not that overwhelming that that's all you can taste, just the burning sensation of your own throat. For me, I don't get it, but some people like that, and that's fine. Then his next question is, who would you rank where out of these Alfa Romeo/Sauber drivers during their time at the team? Bottas, Zhou, Raikkonen, Giovinazzi, Leclerc, Ericsson. So I would put Leclerc top, then Raikkonen, then Ericsson, then Bottas, then Giovinazzi, then Zhou. That's how I would do that, I would say. And the reasoning behind that, I mean, Leclerc, look at what he did, absolutely fantastic. Raikkonen did a solid job most of the time. Last year, I didn't really give a shit, did he? Who can blame him? Ericsson, I think he did a lot better job than what people gave him credit for. I thought, and I've always said it, I think he did a fantastic job in that 2018 season. He was unlucky at times with such as like the DRS not closing at Italy in the free practice at Monza and having a big crash. It was very bad luck at times. And I think that he did a solid job with the car he was got. He just had a great teammate alongside him that Ericsson couldn't compete with, and that's absolutely fine. I think Ericsson that season asserted himself as a solid midfield runner that year and didn't really do anything spectacularly wrong, but just got showed up by Leclerc. Then I think I said Bottas, didn't I? Valtteri Bottas, he did a great performance at the start of 2022. You can't deny that. The car was the only car that was on weight. It was as light as it could be. And Bottas did take advantage of that and scored a lot of points when it mattered and made sure that they clinched sixth at the end of the year. Yet the car development waned away and Bottas started to make mistakes here and there, but did a fantastic job overall in that first year. This year we've not seen much of him at all. Giovinazzi was good but erratic, could often get it right on a Saturday but wrong on a Sunday so drastically when points mattered. And Zhou Guanyu for me, as much as I like the guy, I think he had some good performances in the latter half of 2022 but when the car wasn't capable of the points. And then this year it's been very much dud, hasn't it? So yeah, that's where I would rank them all. Next up, we come to Sandra Jutte and says, "Damn, I'm too late." Well, you're not. You're in here anyway. Can you tell me a little bit more about your huge accidents? Yeah. I think I've mentioned it a couple of times, but never really fully discussed it. So, yeah, I was working in motorsport, as you all know, and we'd had... I can't remember if we were in 2 of 3 or 3 of 3, but we did 3 weekends back to back at Spa-Francorchamps at Belgium. So our championship, our cars used to be eligible to race in 3 separate championships, all the same spec car. There were just 3 different championships that all came together, so to speak, with all the same regulations. So there was the Formula Renault NEC, that was our championship. We went for a championship campaign in that series. We did the whole of the races there. Then with the other categories, we had the Euro Cup, which we didn't do, but we did selected rounds of, to build up testing or to learn circuits or just to gain a bit more experience with the more elite drivers, so to speak. There were a lot of drivers would do NEC for the first season, then into the Euro Cup for the second, is how it would usually work anyway. So the cars were identical, of course, but the Euro Cup had more tougher competition. So we used to go into those every couple of races and see where we were. And then the third round, the third championship was the Formula Renault Alps Championship, which was mainly based in Italy. So we did the occasional 1 or 2 races, and the Alps round did come to a one-off at Belgium. That was the only race it pretty much did outside of Italy in that championship. So we'd set ourselves for that. So we'd had, I think we were coming back after weekend 2. So we'd done the Formula Renault NEC Championship there. And then we were coming back. So we'd done the NEC. We stayed out there. Then it was the Euro Cup round. So we stayed out in Belgium. And then after that race had happened, the reason why we had to come back was because we got a lot of damage. We'd sustained a hell of a lot of damage to the cars. And to put into context, we were there. We were there 2 weeks solid, and we didn't get a day off because there were always something to do. It was a time where we were just fucking around for the sake of fucking around. It really was quite difficult at times. It got to the point where we were changing engines and putting the engine back in that we'd just taken out. Because we were just... the drivers were convinced that, the engine made that they weren't going flat down the Kemmel Straight and they were losing power there. And it turns out that they were just feathering the brake as they were going up Eau Rouge. They thought they'd had the balls to go flat up Eau Rouge, but they didn't, and they were feathering the brake pedal. But rather than actually telling anyone that, and rather than the engineer siding with them for that, and rather than the team boss having the balls to say, look, we can't keep swapping engines around. You know, we just kept swapping engines. Rather than saying, look, we don't need to do it, you're touching the brake. No one could admit it, so we kept fucking around, switching engines around. So I've probably been running off. I would say we finished the last race on Sunday evening of the Euro Cup weekend. So we'd done the NEC, we just finished the Euro Cup. And the Euro Cup round had come to an end. We'd finished packing up. We had to pack all the truck up away, even though we were still there for the week after, because we were moving to a different paddock. I think we had to set the audio up. So we'd have the truck out there. We came back, but we were coming back on Sunday night after we'd been up all day on the Friday, on the Saturday, into the Sunday morning. We'd done the full day at the racetrack on the Sunday, and we were travelling back Sunday night. And yeah, there were 3 of us to get us back home initially, so we were taking the driving in turns. And we all managed to get a little bit of a kit, but we went on the Euro tunnel, so again we were only half an hour as opposed to like a couple of hours rest that you would have had on the ferry. But anyway, we got back home, we got back into the UK, we kept swapping drives over, we kept changing, but then the last leg was, I had a work friend that lived in Oakham, so I dropped him off at Oakham, and then it was a 2-hour drive for me from Oakham to home. Now, I'd got a load of bodywork in the back that needed fixing because we'd had some damage during the weekend, and that was going off to Sheffield the next morning. So we're talking now that we're about 3 in the morning, and I'd probably been working on 7 or 8 hours sleep the whole entire weekend. Sounds stupid, doesn't it? But this is what we're done at the time, and still done now. It's a very dangerous sport, is motorsport, for this, driving tired. So I got all the way down the A1, and I got as far as a service station that I know, and rather than being sensible and pulling into the service station, I didn't. I carried on going because I knew there was a lay-by further on that I could pull out in just to get me a few more miles down the road. So I saw the sign that said parking, 1 mile, and at that point my body just collapsed. I'd just completely burnt myself out. I saw that parking sign and fell asleep. So I'd fallen asleep behind the wheel. I don't know how long for, but it must have been nearly a mile that I was not fully engaged with driving the vehicle, because I woke up after the impact. So basically what happened were I'd fallen asleep, straddled both lanes of the A1. It's only a 2-lane dual carriageway at that point, and I'd straddled both lanes and I'd ploughed into the back of a lorry that was in lane 1, travelling at 50 mile an hour or whatever it was. So I ploughed into the back of it, and I was promptly woken up, funnily enough, parked in the lay-by. However, I was parked in the lay-by and the lorry was there. Like, that was the back of the lorry. Like, I was absolutely cocooned in an absolute mess and heap of just... I mean, for reference, the van that we had was an Iveco Daily, and it had 3 seats in the front. And the dashboard and the seats, the 2 seats at the side, were all here. So rather than being obviously like a long wait, they were all here. So the dashboard was here, the steering wheel, which was around there, like that, more like a bus driver position kind of thing, that was down and pinned my leg against the side of the dashboard that was now here on me. So I was pinned in that way, The whole seat was all bent and buckled and everything. It was a right mess. And I woke up because the truck driver had jumped out. He'd opened the door and he said, "Fucking hell, mate, are you alright?" And that's what woke me up. The impact didn't wake me up. I was fully asleep. It wasn't as if I'd known I'd crashed and then knocked myself unconscious with it. I was asleep the whole time. That's how tired I was. And so I woke up and I was dazed and confused, obviously, because I didn't know what the fuck was going on. Like, I just got truck everywhere. I know I'd had an accident, but I didn't know why or how, because the last thing I remember seeing was the parking, and now I'm in that parking lay-by that I thought I was going to park in, but there's a lorry there. I was just so confused. And I said, "Yeah, I think I'm all right, mate, I'm all right," but obviously realised my leg was stuck, my leg was pinned against the steering wheel and the dashboard. So this other guy that had stopped in the van behind me, that was stopping other cars from coming past me because he'd seen that I was veering in between the lanes and everything, so he stopped other cars from driving past. he pulled over and stopped, and he got a crowbar. So the driver's door was already like open at this point, because the impact of the crash had bent the whole chassis and everything. So the door was already open, and that was straddling into lane 1. So this guy came, it got this crowbar, broke the seat off the runners that I was sat in, so I could get my leg free, and I climbed out. And then he ratchet strapped the door back to the doorpost so it didn't keep wafting open. And the only injury I got from that was a cut finger, like literally just a cut finger from the glass that had smashed. I cut that finger and it was bleeding a little bit. Anyway, obviously the police got called and everyone got called, and like it was a major thing. Like, you know, everyone thought I was dead to start with. So the 999 calls that must have been getting made were quite fraught and frantic, that they're just in a van plough underneath a lorry effectively. So the police came. There was one police car that came initially, closed the A1 straight off. He came straight to where the lay-by was and just went diagonal across and just stopped the old traffic. Ran straight to the van, obviously expecting someone to be dead in there or at least trapped in there. And he was looking round confused, and he's like, well, is this driver in the footwell? Was he not wearing a seatbelt? Has he been ejected? Like, he was really concerned. I mean, this must have only happened for about 30 odd seconds, but I just remember watching him in a really weird, dazed and confused state, because one, I didn't know what had happened for starters, and two, I was that tired, I was still massively out of it. Anyway, the guy came round and he went, where the fucking hell's the driver of this van? And I went, it's me, I'm driving the van. He went, fucking hell, mate. Like, just that's all he said. Like, obviously the police officer was in shock that I was okay. Anyway, so he says, are you alright? Do you need anyone? Do you need ambulance? Do you need medical? Do you need anything? You know, and I was like, no, I'm fine. I feel fine. And he's like, oh, you're probably just in shock. It's probably adrenaline. I was like, I've got no adrenaline in me because I didn't know I was having an accident. So I'd not had this boost of adrenaline like, oh shit, I'm on a crash. You know, where your body goes into this fight or flight mode. I'd not got any of that because I didn't know I'd had an accident, so to speak. I know I had, but I had no recollection of it. I was asleep. So he said, what happened? And I just was straight honest with him. I was like, I was asleep. You know, like, I couldn't lie. You know, he's like, so what happened? So I told him the whole story of where we were, where we'd been, what I'd been up to, how much sleep I'd had or lack of it. And he went, fucking hell, mate. He says, you're an idiot. You're an absolute idiot. I went, I know I am. But I had to, like, in my mind, all that was in my mind is, I have to get these bits to get repaired. You know, like, I had to get that done that day. So I'd crashed now at 4:30 in the morning, this was, at the side of the A1, about 4:30, 4:45 in the morning. I had crashed, and I was due to drop those parts off to get repaired at 9 o'clock on the Monday morning, so they had a chance to go back with me on Wednesday to go back out to Spa for the next round. That is how time constrained it were. Like, I literally would have got home. If I'd have made it home, I'd have got home about 6 o'clock in the morning before I crashed. And then at 9 o'clock, those parts had to be at Sheffield getting fixed. So I probably only would have had 2 hours kip, even if I'd have got home to then go into the van to then take those car parts to be fixed. It was mental, absolutely mental. So, as it was anyway, they took me back to the service station where I'd driven past like an idiot, and my parents picked me up from there. And the parts never got repaired. We just had to buy new ones the weekend when we got back, much to the expense of the team, of course. But it was one of those things, and it was a massive eye opener, not just for us and for the team, but it was a massive eye opener for the paddock as well, because everyone did it and everyone was doing it, and I'm pretty sure it still happens in motorsport now. And this is why I'm a big campaigner and a big believer of all this, like with Formula One, with these ridiculous calendar where people are just stretched to the point of exhaustion, especially when they're dealing with massive time zones as well. You know, massive time zone differences with, you know, you're talking about 12 hours difference. It's just unreal. So yeah, someone is going to get seriously killed at some point, and when it happens, then they'll say, oh, well, changes will be made, but it'd be too late then, because it'd be a life lost, or even worse, could be an innocent life lost as a result of someone from motorsport falling asleep at the wheel like I did. I could have killed anyone that day, I know I could have done. And I could have hit a car, I could have hit anything a lot harder than... I could have killed myself, you know. And as it was, the only reason why we think I sustained no injuries at all, well, virtually anyway, I was still a bit sore in the morning, but the reason why they all assume I didn't assume many injuries was because I was asleep on impact. If I'd have tensed up, I'd have probably put my legs and arms in different positions where it would have caused me more injury. But because I was so relaxed and because I was asleep, I didn't tense up and I just went with the accident. My body just allowed itself to move with the collision, like dissipating the energy. So, yeah, I was a very lucky boy, and I've never made that mistake again. If I ever feel tired, I stop. I stop instantly, and that's only ever happened once, because normally I won't let myself get into a situation where I'm going to even feel tired driving now. So I highly recommend everyone just take the time. Tiredness can literally kill you, and it is silly. It is silly to do. So yeah, don't do it. That's my experience. I have certainly lived and learned from it. That was my last accident. I haven't had an accident in a car since, not even a minor bump. I've had nothing. It's certainly made me a lot more aware of my surroundings while driving. It's calmed me down a lot as a driver as well now, because I see silly incidents where someone will pull out on could pull out on you or a roundabout or something. I'm chilled out. I'm not getting road rage or anything like that, because people make mistakes, it happens. But also, if it were to happen that someone pulls out on a roundabout, I can't stop in time, okay, we're going to have a collision, but everyone's going to be okay in that situation, and I know they are. There's not going to be anything going to go drastically wrong. It's just to be a bit of bent metal. It's fine. I was in a situation where I was lucky to be alive, and that's the end of it. So yeah, thank you so much for that question. I'm sorry that took so long to answer. That is pretty much 20 minutes just gone there. So yeah, but I think that's a worthwhile question. It is literally just like, be careful out there, really. Next question is, what do you think about JSO and ER? Those road blockers, you may rant. Yeah, so Just Stop Oil and Extinction Rebellion are those. Yeah, road blockers, yeah, fucking bellends, absolute bellends. If they've got a worthwhile cause, right, this is what annoys me with protests. Protests only ever seem when they're blocking roads and they're inconveniencing people's lives. Who are they inconveniencing? It's not the people in power, it's not the people in government. They're not inconveniencing their lives, because you'd get a far better response, wouldn't you, if you inconvenience them? No, they always inconvenience the public that are just struggling to get by as it is. And that's what fucks me off with those people. Everyone has a right to protest, and I am a big believer in that. Some of the things that have come into power since and that have been made law are disgusting. That they've been backdoored through COVID with them, like the one that it's illegal to protest, is actually still a law to this day right now, because they have decided to let's how we say, they've decided that the COVID laws will remain in power for indefinitely. That was all voted in years ago, 2021 I believe that all came through. So when we ended the restrictions in July 2021, they then had a vote in August as to whether they should keep these powers in place, and they have kept those powers in place indefinitely, but only to be used when they feel necessary, when they deem fit. So such as protesting is still technically illegal to this day if the Parliament or if the police decide that that protest is illegal. So it does my head in. Everyone's got a right to protest. I am never against protesting, but what you don't do is you don't protest to shaft the little person, and that's all these people are doing that are blocking the roads. They are just shafting the little guy that's just trying to get to work. If you go and protest outside Parliament, or if you go and cause a ruckus down bloody Rishi Sunak Street, or go and cause issue where all the MPs live in these big fancy houses in London, how quickly would it be before the Met Police turn up and get them moved on? It'd be rather rapidly and rather instantly. So, yeah, that's why they don't do it. They go and do it and protest on the little people, inconvenience the little people, and the Parliament don't give a shit. MPs don't give a shit, police don't give a shit, because at the end of the day, they're just causing, and they're just costing their own cause, because people hate them for it. So yeah, if they went and protested outside Rishi Sunak's house, or went and protested outside down an MP's busy road, or stopped them from getting inside 10 Downing Street at the gates, if they all stood outside there and protested, see how quickly it would be before they got moved on. Because the Met Police don't work for the people like they're supposed to, they work for the government. So they're a corrupt set of bastards as well. I'm putting that in while we're at it. So yeah, I don't agree. I mean, people have a right to protest. Absolutely get that. But they need to protest at the right time in the right parts of the country, is all I'm going to say to that. Question 3, Thatcher or Churchill? Well, I mean, that's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? I mean, it's got to be Churchill, hasn't it? Got to be Churchill. You wouldn't pick Thatcher, would you? Thatcher the milk snatcher, and I'm from Yorkshire as well, don't forget. So yeah, yeah, definitely Churchill. Last one. How many minutes have we got? We've got probably about 3 minutes left before this camera goes off. So quick. Laurie's last question comes after Sander Jutte's 3. So yeah, here we go. Last question of the Q&A. Third and final question is: do you think Heikki Kovalainen deserved more time in Formula One? Yes, he struggled against Hamilton, but at Caterham he did occasionally challenge the lower midfield runners. I think Heikki Kovalainen had his time, to be honest with you. I really do, Laurie. Did he deserve more time? I think had he done a little bit better in 2009. I know that McLaren was a bit dog shit, don't get me wrong. But Hamilton was still able to win a couple of races with it, and Heikki Kovalainen rarely scored points with it. It was a massive points deficit at the end of the year. And yeah, like I said, I know the car was tough, but that really set him up to fail in his career anyway, because at that point then, 2010 came along, he had to take the new seats at Lotus. He did do a cracking job for Lotus when the car finished, before it wasn't catching on fire. But yeah, 2010 Lotus, yeah, okay. 2011 Lotus / Caterham, whatever that fiasco was called that year. Again, did a good job with the car he was given at times, and when it was able to finish the race without breaking down. But yeah, I do feel his career course had very much ran its course. Let's put that way. So there we have it then, guys. That is the end of the Q&A. All those questions have been answered. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for tuning into this. I really do appreciate it. Thank you all for dropping your comments and your questions in, and thank you for the continued support. I really do appreciate it. And I'll make it an annual thing now, so I'll do it once every year, probably September time, late August, something like that. Yeah, so you've got a year to plan now for your next round of questions. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and as always, much love.